What is good, everybody? Steel Sermon in the house on this September 3rd morning. And we are about a week or so away from the regular season kickoff. So I am recording this right now, baby. My previews are back. My recaps are going to be back. And if you saw my video that I posted earlier today, it's only a matter of time before I reach 1,000 subs so I can start streaming again. And we'll go from there. But one thing is for certain, it is a new era of Steeler football, ladies and gentlemen. And it all starts next Sunday on the memorial of September 11th of 2001. As we get things kicked off down in the Queen City in Cincinnati, Ohio, to take on the defending AFC North and defending AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Who would ever thought I'd be saying that about them? But yeah, before I begin, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. Links are posted in the description box below. So, this is my pregame preview for it. A lot of you know that when I started YouTube, I was in the TTC and I would trash talk my opponent. I don't do that anymore. I'm retired from the TTC. My channel is now strictly talking about sports. Even though we play division rivals, I may throw in a little bit of jabs at them, but that's as worst as I'll do. But anyway, getting on to this game. So obviously, you talk about the Bengals first. As I said, defending AFC North champions and defending AFC champions. Lost a heartbreaker to the Rams in the Super Bowl back in February. And honestly, this Bengal team may have just gotten better in this offseason, as I'll dive into it more. To me, it all starts with their quarterback. Needs no explanation in Joe Burrow. He put together a phenomenal season last year. He won Comeback Player of the Year. And even though that he was hurried consistently behind that offensive line that they had last year, which registered 55 sacks total last year, he still put together 34 touchdowns and 14 picks. So that behind that offensive line has to be a massive dub. And it just kind of seems like that even with that offensive line, Burrow is able to get something out of nothing right there. Which brings me into my first matchup right here. Their newest acquisition, I believe, to that offensive line in La'el Collins. He'll be guarding that right side a lot. And guess who likes to come up from that right side quite a bit? Give you a hint. He wears number 90, and he's the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. If you guessed TJ Watt, you are correct. So that's going to be your biggest That's going to be one of your biggest matchups for week one, in my personal opinion, right there. La'el Collins against TJ Watt. La'el Collins actually turned in a really solid 2021 season. It looks like that he's growing naturally on that right side. So obviously, yeah, I mean, he's got his work cut out for him right there. And speaking of our pass rush, that O-line is going to be tested big time. I know the Bengals pretty much revamped their O-line in the offseason. They added a couple of guards and I think a center as well. But, Cam Hayward's still there. He has been such a developing factor for us this year, over the past couple of years. I expect him to make a big difference in this game. Alex Highsmith got to the quarterback half a dozen times last year. He has really come up on his own. And then former Bengal coming on the scene for us, Larry Ogunjobi, who has now played for 3 out of the 4 AFC North teams. Kind of like James Harrison. A lot of people don't remember James Harrison was actually with the Ravens practice squad for a little bit. So, yeah, Larry Ogunjobi, his 3rd team in the AFC North, and he'll be on our defensive line as well, stopping the run, which brings me in to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, solid year last year. When he's healthy and good to go, he is good for apparently over 1,200 yards rushing. So that right there, the run defense versus the run game right there, That's obviously something the Steelers have a lot of history with stopping right there and a lot of trouble with in the past. So hopefully that does not become a continuing trend right there. But that's, why we bring in Larry Ogunjobi, and hopefully why Miles Jack can come in and pair up with Devin Bush to get his head on straight. You all know how I feel about Devin Bush, all right? But yeah, that's another key matchup right there. Our run defense against their run attack. Talking about the cream of the crop, in my opinion, for the Bengals, it goes to their wide receivers and their passing game, which lets me start off with number one himself in Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase last year ran away with Offensive Rookie of the Year, broke Justin Jefferson's record, but he really wasn't a factor in both games against us last year. I mean, that's not to say that that the Bengals' number 2 and 3 options were factors, because they absolutely were. I mean, T. Higgins roasted us in both games last year, but if we're able to keep Ja'Marr Chase relatively quiet, that is a very big, thing that we need to build off of right there. And I think your matchup right there, you got to put Levi Wallace up on a guy like Ja'Marr Chase. Obviously, you got to put a couple bodies up on that guy, because Ja'Marr Chase is just a fluid route runner. And if you're not ready, he will straight up roast you. So, is Ja'Marr Chase going to have a sophomore slump? Is he going to build off of what he did in 2021? Only time will tell, but I want to see Levi Wallace get in on the action here. He seems to be like a good deep threat corner right there, and he can play a number one receiver. So I want to see Levi Wallace, at the very least, be put up on Ja'Marr Chase right there. The secondary in general for us just needs to step up. We got some playmakers on the secondary, but against a team like the Bengals, where they can explode at any given moment, you got to step up right there. That's why we extended Akella Witherspoon in the offseason. Cam Sutton, I feel like he needs to play more in a slot corner position. Minkah Fitzpatrick, we gave him all that money in the offseason as well. He is now the highest paid safety in NFL history. And, of course, you got guys like T. Higgins stepping up to the range for the Bengals as well. I think I already mentioned him. But, yeah, this is a good, Tyler Boyd has really become a centerpiece for the Bengals. The only thing that the Bengals really lost that will hinder them a little bit, but I don't think it will so much. C.J. Uzomah is no longer with the team. He was becoming a favorite target, really, for Joe Burrow. But I really don't think losing that tight end right there will really hinder them a whole lot. But it's going to be interesting to see how Burrow's going to spread the ball around. I think also with our secondary right here, you got to put some bodies up on Joe Mixon, getting back to the run game a little bit. Joe Mixon does pretty well against safeties, and he's able to, evade big plays from safeties. So I think you got to get it. I would like to see us incorporate, a couple of safety blitzes, a couple of safety packages right there. You got to get creative a little bit with Minkah Fitzpatrick. This guy's predominantly a free safety, but I would like him, to be more of like a strong safety position for this game. You got to be able to plug up that run hole if your defensive line is not able to get up to Joe Mixon. Obviously, that's going to be a big factor right there for the offense. Getting on to us for offense, it still hasn't been announced who Mike Tomlin will be starting for week 1. I expect that to be announced probably by Tuesday or Wednesday. As I said, I'm recording this on September 3rd. But in my personal opinion, you got to start Mitch Trubisky week 1. There's no need to rush Kenny Pickett. There's no need to throw him into the fire right away. So that way, you can ruin his confidence right there. Not saying that that's going to happen if Kenny Pickett starts, but kind of like what we did with Big Ben back in 2004. We didn't start Big Ben right away. We started Tommy Maddox back then. And then Tommy Maddox got injured in week 2 against the Ravens. Big Ben came in, rest is history, But that's very rare that, that's going to happen. So I think for this matchup, you got to start Mitch Trubisky, and you got to start in the majority of the season. Now, look, if you absolutely want to start Kenny Pickett at some point this season, I would start him week 4 because we play the Jets that week. It's probably the weakest team on our schedule this year. So if you want to get Kenny Pickett's feet wet with the NFL a little bit, I would start him against one of our weaker opponents. But for these first 3 weeks, at least these first 3 weeks, you got to start Mitch Trubisky. Like I said, you can't throw him into the fire right away against the defending AFC champs. Next week we got our home opener against the Patriots, and then we got a shortened week going into Cleveland to play the Browns. So like I said, at least the first 3 weeks you got to start Mitch Trubisky. And talking about it, with his mobility needing to be an X factor right here and him being able to shake off a tackler if this offensive line can step up, I think Mitch has what it takes to win us a couple of games because this is a team that's like half rebuilding and half competing right here. We're not blowing it up entirely. We kept a lot of players, from over the past couple of years, but overall we're getting younger at the same time. So like I said, half rebuilding, half competing. And I think Mitch is a very good bridge guy into where Kenny Pickett's going to come in. Kenny Pickett is going to be the answer at some point, but it's probably just not going to be this year. Obviously, he will be if we drafted him 20th overall back in April. So Mitch is just here to fill the gap between starting him and starting Kenny Pickett. And, rookies, they take some time to develop, Like, look at Patrick Mahomes. It took him 2 years to develop. Josh Allen took him 3 years to develop. And if you want the best comparison to where I think Kenny Pickett can make a splash right away, Russell Wilson's rookie year in 2012. No one expected Russell Wilson up in Seattle to do anything special, but they started him right away. They had that gut feeling that Russell Wilson could be the guy, and, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But I think this just all wraps around that you got to start Mitch Trubisky majority of the season. I think he gives us a good chance at least being competitive. And honestly, I think any option at quarterback right now is better than what we were going to have from Big Ben last year. Now, I know a lot of you people like selective hearing, but there's a key phrase. Last year. Big Ben was 39 last year. He turned 40 over spring. He was done. We all knew it. He was on his last legs. The only reason that Ben really came back here was that he was going to be making $30 million. Not a lot of quarterbacks are going to say no to that. Okay? But like I said, Mitch needs to start at least majority of the season. I think every wide receiver on this team is going to have an opportunity here. We got a good young nucleus of wide receivers to build around right here. Deontay Johnson getting all that money in the offseason as well. George Pickens made a big splash with preseason. Calvin Austin has, turned some heads in the preseason as well and in training camp as well. Pat Freiermuth, keep doing what you're doing. Boykin's going to get his shot. We got a couple of, obviously Connor Hayward coming in. Chase Claypool, he proclaimed himself to be a top 3 receiver. I still think that's ridiculous, but if he's going to be a top 3 receiver, he has to perform like it, So I think every weapon on this receiving core is going to have their opportunity to shine here. Obviously the Bengals, they got a good pass defense as well. They paid Jesse Bates all that money, but really he didn't do all that well in the pass last year. But with him getting paid that extension finally, I think Jesse Bates is going to come on here and, have play like he earned that extension. Former Steeler Mike Hilton, I believe he's still with the team. He had a pick 6 against us last year. These guys are really high on Eli Apple, and I don't know why. I really don't think Eli Apple's all that good. But, hey, if it works out for them, it works out for them. The Bengals also on defense, they do pretty well on the D-line and the linebacker core. They really improved that. Trey Hendrickson had a phenomenal year last year, getting 14 sacks last year. And then, of course, you got Sam Hubbard coming in from the right side as well. So a good pass rush for the Bengals, a good young physical defense. I honestly think that these two defenses are kind of similar, but I don't really think it's going to be, it's going to come down to, who's going to have the better defense. I think both these defenses are capable of blitzing, and I think that they're both capable of getting to the quarterback a handful of times. So, yeah, man, it's just typical AFC North football. A lot of these games within the division are hard-hitting, and they're physical and grimy, and that's the kind of game I expect. So with all that being said, these are my keys to victory for this game. My first key to victory is that you gotta win within the trenches. You gotta be able to stop that run game. You gotta be able to make Joe Burrow play quarterback a little bit, and you gotta lock down you gotta put multiple bodies up on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. If you do that, your chances of winning are gonna skyrocket substantially. The second thing is that it's about ball control. Mitch Trubisky, I expect him to start in this game. I can't stress that enough. You got to be able to have an even balanced attack on offense, and that's the kind of offense that Matt Canada likes to run with the West Coast offense kind of style. You got to get Najee Harris, about at least 20 carries a game this game. At the bare minimum, 20 carries. You got to use your running backs for this game. You got to be able to use Derek Watt and Connor Hayward for this game, and you got to be able to bleed out the clock. Keep their offense off the field keep their offense off the field for as long as possible. Spread the ball around with your receivers. Get these new guys involved like George Pickens, like Calvin Austin, like Connor Hayward, as I just said. So really, those are my keys to victory right there. I think if we do those two things on offense and defense, we have a good chance of beating this team. This is a team that has beaten us the last 3 times, and all 3 times were by at least 10 points. They beat us on that Monday night game a couple years ago when Juju danced on their logo. Then they beat us pretty badly in the home opener last year, and then obviously last year we all know they destroyed us in Cincinnati by 31 points a couple days after Thanksgiving. So, Pittsburgh Steelers, I want you to come in this game with a chip on your shoulder. I want you to show the Bengals that this isn't the same team from a couple years ago that they knocked around the past 3 times. I want you to come in here and show them that this is the team that you had beaten. I don't even remember how many times it's been because we've done it so often, but I think it's 20 out of the last 23 times in Cincinnati that you've beaten this team. I want you to give them a message that this is the first time that these two are ever opening up a season against one another. I want you to show them who the real ownage in this rivalry goes to. Plain and simple. And you do it by playing Pittsburgh Steelers kind of football, baby. Knocking them around, punch them in the face, beat them up on defense, and never let them have their opportunity on offense, man. Let's get on to it. I think this is going to be a great game. I think this is going to be a really good test for a lot of the younger guys on this team and vice versa. The Bengals, they have some new faces coming in here too. I think they would want to open up against a hated rival. So yeah, let's get on to it. I expect this to be a really good game. It's Steelers-Bengals, baby. Football is back, and let's get on to it. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And this is Steel Sermon. Checking on out for the day. Football is back. Go Steelers, baby. And God bless you all.